All right, so today we're doing a deep dive into something that I think is pretty cool. OpenAI's latest ChatGPT update. It's called Canvas. And you know how we've been talking about that project you're working on? Well, imagine, like, having an AI collaborator who not only, gets what you're doing, but actually works alongside you. You're like a real partner. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and what I find really interesting is that OpenAI seems to have recognized that, while a simple chat is great for just quick questions and things like that, when you get into some of these larger projects, especially, with things like coding and writing, something bigger, something more collaborative is needed.
Yeah, for sure. So instead of just a chat window, what are we actually looking at here? Like, what IS Canvas?
Well, I mean, in the simplest terms, it's like a dedicated workspace. It's where you and ChatGPT work together, at the same time, like in real time. And it's not just a minor tweak. This is like OpenAI is doing a complete overhaul. It's specifically designed with those ChatGPT Plus and Teams users in mind,
Oh, okay.
which, I mean, that kind of tells you that they're taking this seriously.
Makes sense, right?
Mm.
Start with the power users, see how it goes.
Ugh,
But they do plan to, like, roll it out to everyone eventually, right?
that's right. Yeah, even free users will get it eventually. It seems like they're betting big on this being the way, the future of how we interact with AI.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure. Interesting. Interesting. So how does this actually work in practice? Like, let's say I'm writing a blog post. How would Canvas actually, like, how would it change how I do things?
Well, I think for writers, one of the biggest game changers is context. So ChatGPT in Canvas can actually see the entire scope of your project, not just, the last few lines of a chat. So like just imagine ChatGPT suggesting like blog post titles that are tailored to, your target audience because it understands the entire article that you've already written. That's the power of context.
That would be really cool. Yeah, no more of those like random AI suggestions that are just like so off base, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
What about when you actually like need to, like fine tune things?
Right. So Canvas gives you much more precision. Like, let's say you have a paragraph that you're not sure about. You can literally highlight it in Canvas, and ChatGPT will actually just focus its suggestions on that one specific section.
Oh, wow. So it's like having a dedicated editor, but they know exactly where to look.
Yeah, precisely. Plus, you maintain that total control over the final product. You can edit directly within Canvas. You can track different versions of your work, like all the things that you'd expect from, a collaborative workspace. They've even added these really cool shortcuts for common tasks, like
Mhm.
adjusting the length of like a piece of writing, but it keeps your like core message intact.
Oh, wow. That's wild. And so this isn't just for writers, right?
Sure.
What about like coders like yourself? What does Canvas offer, for them?
Yeah, so for coders, this is potentially a game changer, especially when it comes to things like, debugging and revision tracking, things like that.
Okay. Yeah, I can see how that would be super helpful. Could you give me like an example of that?
Yeah, so imagine you're stuck on, a particularly nasty bug in your code, right? So instead of spending hours, poring over your code, searching online, you can actually turn to Canvas. ChatGPT can review your code, it can add in helpful comments, it can even suggest potential fixes, like right there, directly in your code editor.
Wow, that's like next level stuff right there.
Yeah.
It sounds incredibly useful, like for anybody who writes code, especially when you hit those like frustrating, roadblocks and stuff. So it's not just like fixing the code. It's like it actually understands the problem and it's like, oh, here are some potential solutions.
Exactly, and this is where it gets really really interesting from a more technical standpoint. So the AI model behind Canvas, this isn't just like a souped up version of the Chat GPT that we're all used to. This is an entirely new model. It's called GPT-4o, and it was specifically designed from the ground up for this kind of like collaborative work.
Okay. So they actually taught GPT-4o to be more of like a partner,
Yeah.
not just a tool, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just like spitting out, text on command, it's actually like part of the creative process.
Exactly. Yeah, they trained it to recognize, in a simple chat response, it just won't cut it, and it'll actually proactively suggest moving over to that Canvas interface. It's almost as if it's saying like, "Hey, I see what you're trying to do here, and I think I could be a lot more helpful if, we switch gears a little bit."
That's fascinating. It's almost like it's self-aware enough to like know its own limitations. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And be like, like a more powerful tool is needed in this situation.
Yeah.
So it's not just about having the right tools. It's about like knowing when and how to use them effectively.
Exactly. Yeah, and it gets even smarter. GPT-4o can actually tell the difference between, like offering subtle tweaks to your work versus like suggesting a complete rewrite. So it understands that, sometimes you just need a little nudge in the right direction, and other times you really need like a fresh perspective, a completely different approach.
Yeah, that's huge because, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had, ChatGPT just completely rewrite something in a way that, like, totally loses, like, the original, like, voice and style that, that I was going for.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and they've even trained it to like write better code comments, which as any developer will tell you is a godsend.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of, the details, um, OpenAI is calling Canvas, and I quote, the first major update to ChatGPT's visual interface.
Yeah.
Since launch, which seems like a pretty big deal. What do you make of that?
Oh, I think what they're doing is they're signaling this fundamental shift in, how we interact with AI. So we're moving away from that simple question and answer format, and we're moving towards a much deeper level of like true collaboration. Canvas it's a statement, and it's saying that AI is no longer content to just be this tool that we use. It wants to be a partner that we work with.
And we're not just talking about like a new feature here. We're talking about a whole new way of thinking about AI.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, just imagine a world where everyone has access to this kind of like AI collaborator, like a partner that can help them, overcome creative blocks, refine their ideas, and just bring their visions to life in ways that, they never even thought possible.
Yeah. It's like having like a brainstorming partner, a sounding board, and like a technical expert all rolled into one.
Exactly.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
It is, and that's precisely what OpenAI wants us to do. They want us to think about it. They want us to consider the potential of this technology, not just as this way to like make our lives a little bit easier, but as this force for, creativity and innovation.
Yeah. Dill, it's not just about like making our lives easier.
Yeah.
It's about like what can we actually do with this? Like how can we actually like, push the boundaries of what's possible.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, like the more we talk about this, the more I'm like, oh wow, like there's some serious potential here.
Yeah, it's exciting, isn't it? I mean, just think about the implications for things like, education or research, even art,
Yeah.
Like imagine like students having access to like personalized AI tutors that could like adapt to their learning style, or scientists, being able to analyze these massive data sets, but with the help of like AI assistants that can spot patterns, generate hypotheses.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like giving like everybody a superpower, like a way to like augment their own abilities and achieve things that, maybe they never thought possible.
Hmm.
And it really makes you wonder, like, if this is just the beginning, right? What could like future versions of Canvas even look like?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, could we see things like, AI project managers that are helping us stay on track, meet our deadlines, or like you said, virtual research assistants that
Yeah.
can just go out and gather all this information, summarize those key findings from, this vast sea of data. I mean, the possibilities really are kind of endless.
It's almost like OpenAI saying, like, hey, this is like, here's a glimpse into the future of AI. Now go out there and like make it happen.
Exactly. Yeah, and I for one am really excited to see, what people do with it.
Yeah, me too. It feels like we're on the cusp of something like truly, truly groundbreaking here.
Well, I think we've reached the bottom of this deep dive. It's been really fascinating to kind of explore this whole, the potential of OpenAI's Canvas and what it might mean for, the future of AI collaboration.
I agree. It's definitely a topic that's going to spark a lot of conversation, a lot of innovation,
Hmm.
in the coming months and years. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll catch you next time.